He was one match away from achieving his dream of becoming the greatest spiritual master, but because of a traitor, his pet goes out of control and even ends up consuming him. But he's mysteriously reincarnated into another body. The story begins with a boy named Fawn, who we learn is the leader of the Lingxiao Pavilion. He goes to his family's ancestral hall, where he tells his parents that he's been working hard so he can reclaim their lost reputation, and mentions that once he wins the competition, their sect will be promoted to the Class A, and he asks his ancestors to watch over him. After that, Fawn's students wish him luck, and he summons a giant eagle, which he uses to fly away. On their way, Fawn brings out his spirit pet named Nyan, which impresses everyone who sees it, since it's massive. When they arrive at the competition, an old man wonders how the league allowed the Lingxiao Pavilion to enter the A-class tournament, because he thinks they're nobodies. But another master disagrees, because Fawn was born into a reputable family, but they faced an unfortunate decline, and he was the only one who survived. The master notes that Fawn built the entire sect by himself, but they reached the B-class in record time, and he mentions that Fawn has connections with him. So he knows that Fawn has a great understanding of spiritual pets, thinking he has a promising future. Meanwhile, Fawn goes to see his students, and a spirit cat named Jaime hugs his legs, so its master Duan gets jealous. But another student thinks that Fawn should take it back, since it clearly likes him more. A disciple named Guling wonders if Fawn needs anything, so he invites Duan outside, reminding him of their promise to become the strongest. Fawn mentions that it's finally time to turn their dream into reality, and he gives an inspiring speech, telling his disciples they should march towards the absolute peak. The Lingxiao Pavilion enters the arena, and Fawn summons Nyan, which impresses everyone, including his opponent Hong. But he still thinks Fawn is nothing compared to him, and he summons his great ape, telling Fawn to bring it on. The spirit pets charge at each other, but as Nyan opens its mouth to consume the ape, it counters with a devastating uppercut. Fawn launches a water attack at Hong, but he uses his ape's fire to block it, and the ape starts attacking Nyan. It grabs Nyan by its mouth and throws it towards the audience, but Fawn saves everyone by moving it toward the sky. He launches multiple water attacks towards the ape, but they have no effect, and the ape ascends to its final form. Its entire body is covered with flames, and it launches a giant fire punch towards Fawn, which worries Guling, but Duan tells her to trust him. He begins Nyan's ascension, which turns it into an immortal black whale, and it consumes all the flames. The ape becomes angry and continues to attack, but Nyan counters with a stream of water, which creates smaller whales from the water droplets. The water flows back towards Nyan, as Fawn and Hong go all out with their final attack, and as they clash with the ape, there's a massive explosion. The ape is defeated, and the crowd goes wild, but Guling notices that something's wrong. Nyan reaches its transmutated stage, and it becomes the rotting corpse whale, which starts consuming everything. Fawn tries to cancel the summoning, but he realizes that he has lost control of it, and ends up being eaten as well. In a flashback, we see Fawn's father teaching him how to control a whale spirit, and his friends join him on his mission to revive the sect, but his parents' death left him all alone. He's given an ancient scroll passed down in his family by a mysterious man, which mentions that if he dies because of a plot against him, it will reincarnate him into the body of a healthy person who died by accident, and he learns that by doing this, he can indirectly prolong the person's life, so the man thinks it will help him achieve his goal. Fawn wakes up a year after his death, but he wonders where he is, and why his clothes are different. He tries to summon Nyan, but he realizes that he can't, so he goes to the nearby lake to get water, but he's shocked to see that he looks completely different. He wonders how it happened, but a man notices him and calls his friends, as Fawn recognizes their uniform, realizing they belong to Bai's mansion. They surround him, so he asks them what he did to them, but they just knock him out. After that, Fawn wakes up and finds himself chained in a dungeon, so he thinks that all his efforts to take his sect to the A-class have been wasted, but he's happy to be alive. He knows he needs to start all over again, but he wonders who betrayed him and caused Nyan to lose control. He also wants to know more about the real master of his new body, so he decides to check his spiritual pets, but he's surprised to see a dog named Teddy and a cactus. He asks them about their skills, and Teddy starts peeing on the ground, while the cactus lifts it into the air. He realizes that someone's coming, so he quickly hides them before the door opens, and the guard calls him Lu. He notes that Miss Bai wants to see him, but he's disgusted by the smell, so Lu mentions that he couldn't hold it in. On their way, Lu starts asking questions, but the guard completely ignores him and takes him directly to Bai's chamber. Lu manages to free his hands, but he hides them before the guard sees him, and as he enters the room, she asks him if he knows why she kept him alive. So he tells her that it must be because she's generous and she wishes for him to correct his mistakes. But she accuses him of drugging her water, and she notes that she has never been humiliated like that, telling him even killing him won't satisfy her. She notes that she'll keep him in prison for the rest of his life, so he can serve her as a servant, which freaks him out, and he mentions that he isn't trained for that. He steps back, telling her to find someone else for the role, but she tells him he isn't allowed to leave, and uses her spirit snake to send him flying. She wonders if he's already dead, but he summons his spirit pets, which make her laugh, because she thinks they're no match for her. She sends her snake to attack them, but Lou tells his pets to stick to the plan, and he distracts the snake with Teddy while he launches the cactus towards the snake, and it starts to restrain it with its vines. Bai is impressed that Lou can fight with two pets at the same time, but she refuses to lose to him. The snake slams its body to the ground, which loosens the cactus's grip, and the snake eats it. But it turns out to be part of Lou's plan, as vines cover the snake's entire body and stop it from moving. Lou tells Teddy to use its ultimate move, so it jumps into the air and pees at the snake, which disgusts Bai. She notes that his pets are as disgusting as him, so she must get rid of them at all costs, and she activates her snake's second phase, which covers its entire body with flames. It burns Lou's spirits, so he calls them back, but she tells him he should worry about himself, and the snake charges at him. He falls into the water, which makes him wonder if he's about to die again, but he suddenly sees a catfish. Lou comes out, and Bai is impressed that he's still alive, but she notices that he's established a bond with her brother's catfish. She notes that catfishes were once cultivated into invincible whales, but during last year's competition, the catfish of the Lingxiao Pavilion lost control and devoured its own master. He tells her it was just an accident, but she mentions that the league issued a termination letter, so the catfishes were wiped out. But her brother decided to keep one in the pond, and she thinks it's the only one left on the continent. She thinks that only the master of the Lingxiao Pavilion can cultivate the fish, so it's a useless pet to everyone else, but hearing this makes him angry. She sends her snake to attack him, but he grabs it by the mouth and tells Nyan to devour it. She's shocked as the tiny fish eats the snake, and he uses the opportunity to escape, but her men chase after him. So he jumps off the cliff and uses the cactus to swing to the other side. Bai is disappointed by the news of his successful escape, and she tells her men to bring him dead or alive. But there's suddenly a gust of wind as her brother Tangshu arrives, asking her who she's trying to kill. Meanwhile, Lou wakes up as a bird lands on his face, and he realizes he wasn't dreaming. Bai tells her brother what happened, and he's sad that he lost his catfish, but he mentions that its only skill is devouring, telling her it may consume its master as well. He believes that only Fawn can take it to its full strength, but he's already dead, so they don't need to worry about Lou, telling her he'll deal with him in the future. Lou reaches the Haiyun Inn and introduces himself as a member of the Lingxiao Pavilion, which attracts everyone's attention. He asks for a transport pet, since they have an agreement with the inn, but the receptionist asks Lou to show him his sect code, along with the moves and words. Lou shows it to him, but he doesn't recognize it, so he checks it in his book, and finally finds the Lingxiao Pavilion. Lou asks for a sonic falcon, but the receptionist reveals that their sect was removed from the list, so he has no choice but to rent a pig. On his way, he remembers how the receptionist told him that the sect was degraded to D-class because Fawn died, and the league issued an order to eliminate all catfish, while the other sects robbed the Lingxiao Pavilion of its remaining resources, so it was removed from the league list and became a folk organization. Meanwhile, one of the disciples of the Lingxiao Pavilion named Tong cooks a number of dishes, but Duan wonders what she's doing, reminding her of the condition of their sect. So she explains that she doesn't know, but she just has a feeling they'll have an important guest. Lou goes to the spiritual pet services, where he asks the receptionist to heal his pets and issue status certificates for them. He goes to another counter and asks the shopkeeper if they have the defense skill bubbles, so he mentions that they only have one left. Lou is happy that things are going smoothly, but a man named Zhu suddenly arrives and mentions that he'll buy the last volume at 3 times its price. The storekeeper explains that he has already sold it to Lou, but Zhu refuses to give up and summons his pet. Lou tells him to wait, but he doesn't attack, and instead invites Lou outside to share a meal with him, since he actually knows the real Lou. He eats like he hasn't eaten in days, and Zhu wonders where he went, so he mentions that he was busy growing flowers and raising his dog at home. But Zhu thinks something's wrong with him, since he didn't drink at all. He makes an excuse that he had too much last night, but Zhu tells him that if he can defeat him in a drinking competition, he'll give him anything as a reward. Lu remembers how he couldn't handle alcohol in his past life, so he looked bad in front of his disciples, but with his new body, he easily outdrinks Zhu, who ends up passing out. Lu leaves after taking the bubble scroll, and he also frees the girl that Zhu had captured. After that, Lu helps Nyan learn the bubble skill, and he tells her it's just the beginning, while the girl he freed watches him in secret. Meanwhile, the Lingxiao Pavilion is attacked by the Mega Rock Gang, who tell them to pack their stuff and leave, but Duan summons Jaime to fight them. They realize it's a speed-type pet, and the lizard and turtle duo try to take it out, but it dodges their attacks, and it easily takes them out with its lightning-fast speed. They send a beetle to stop it, but Jaime passes right through it, and Duan tells them they're no match for their sect. But as he talks about their greatness, one of the attackers controls the beetle to launch a surprise attack on Guling. So Jaime rushes to save her, but it turns out to be a trap, and she gets caught by the lizard. Lu arrives, and he's surprised to see the devastation of his sect within just a year, but he notices that the gate is open. He wonders why there's no one around, so he rushes in and sees the heartbreaking scene. The Mega Rock Gang thinks it's over, since they don't have anyone left to fight them, but Teddy suddenly starts peeing on them, and they wonder where he came from. So Lu teases them, and his style reminds Guling of her master. They send their dragon lizard to attack Teddy, but it's able to block the attack and take it out, leaving them shocked. They summon all their spirits, and decide to attack Lu directly, but he pretends to be weak and runs away. They send their spirit pets to chase him, but when they're out of sight, he uses Nyan to devour all of them. He mentions that he was having trouble finding high-quality pets to feed to her, but they're shocked to see a catfish since they're banned, and they threaten to expose him. But he scares them, telling them no one will know if he lets it devour them, and they end up running away. Guling comes to thank him, but he hugs her, telling her it's good to see her again. She wonders if she knows him, and he's about to reveal his true identity, but stops as he recalls that Nyan turned into the corpse whale because someone betrayed him, so he just tells her that she resembles someone he knows. But as he walks past her, she's once again reminded of her master. Guling starts crying as she sees Jaime die, which reminds Lu of when they found it near the waterfall, and he told Duan to keep it since it seemed to like him. Duan loses all hope, and he tells them he's leading the sect since they don't have any spiritual pets left. We go back to when Duan first joined the Lingxiao Pavilion, and he was surprised to see that there was only one person in the whole sect. He notes that the sect doesn't even have a sign, but Fawn insists he will be able to reach the top, and Duan believes him, so he decides to join. In the present, Lu tries to stop Duan, telling him there's still hope, and they can revive the Lingxiao Pavilion, but he notes that they don't need the pity of a stranger. Guling also tries to stop him, telling him they need to carry on their master's will, but he tells her to face reality, and notes that their sect died along with Fawn. He leaves saying he'll start over again, and Guling asks everyone to convince him to stay, but they also believe there's no hope left for their sect. They thank her for taking care of them, and they all decide to leave along with Duan. Lu stands alone, as everyone bids farewell to the sect, and he wishes they had given him time, so that he could have solved their problems. After that, Guling notes that Duan was the candidate to replace Fawn, since he was the first disciple and a skilled fighter. She wonders who will replace him now that he's gone, and a disciple named Cheng notes that there's only one person who deserves the role. Lu thinks he's talking about him, but he ends up picking Guling. She becomes their master, and they wonder what they should do next, so Lu suggests they should catch new spiritual pets, and Guling remembers Fawn once again as she looks at him, but he tells her it's her decision, and she mentions that they don't have any pets, so it should be their top priority. She looks at the places where they can find pets, but she notes that they're all occupied, so Lu tells them he knows a good place. He takes them to the location, but it's already filled with people who are fighting over the pets, so he guides them to the edge of the cliff, and checks that they weren't followed. Cheng notes that they're alone, so he jumps down, and they think he's crazy. But he manages to land safely, and he uses his cactus pet to help the others get down, telling them it's a secret habitat where they might find a lord. They aren't familiar with the term, so he explains that spiritual animals have 4 grades, which are soldier, general, lord and emperor. He tells them that pets of the soldier grade are mostly timid, but they need to be careful of the pets of the higher grades. As they go deeper, Tong notices a fire fox, which surprises Lu, since it has 3 tails, and it seems to be in the second phase of the soul building stage. He wonders what a soul building pet is doing there, and he realizes it already belongs to someone else, so he tells everyone to be careful. A boy named Mukon suddenly attacks him, but he narrowly dodges it, and Mukon tells them they're in his territory, telling them he'll show no mercy if they don't leave. They all follow Lu's plan and prepare their summoning loops, as they pretend that they have dangerous pets. It works as Mukon decides to leave without a fight, and the group celebrates their bluff, but they suddenly hear an animal's noise, so Lu tells them it must be the Lord. They all start running in the direction of the sound, and they see a rhino horn panda, which is in the 7th phase of the mature stage. Mukon tells them it will belong to whoever can cultivate it, so they shouldn't play any tricks, and he orders his fire fox to attack it. But the panda uses its horn to deprive him of his colors, and Lu narrowly dodges its attack. He notices its strange ability, and tells everyone to step back, but his hands are already affected by color removal. He summons Teddy, and tells it to detoxify him using its pee, but it doesn't get rid of the poison. The panda launches an attack at the firefox, but Mukon notices that the wound looks like a painting, while Lu also can't find anything wrong after the attack. So they realize that the panda's skill is to absorb colors, and use them to create illusions. It suddenly attacks them from behind, and they realize it changes their colors to confuse them, but there's no actual damage, so it relies on melee attacks. Mukon tells his fox to attack from a distance, but the panda manages to hit it with a piece of bamboo. Mukon thinks they should cooperate, because they can easily catch it by working together, and he notes that they can share it. Lu tells Teddy to pee on it, and he orders his cactus to attack, but the panda suddenly hits it from behind. He realizes that it has exchanged its color with the rock, and the panda blinds everyone by making its horn glow. It suddenly disappears, so Mukon tells his fox to use its fire so they can see it, and he thinks he has found the panda, so he orders the fox to attack. But the panda slams it from above, and it suddenly activates its spiritual pollution skill, which makes Lu and Mukon dizzy, and it easily takes them out. Teddy realizes it must take matters into its own hands, and since dogs have color blindness, he uses its sense of smell to find the panda instead, and he attacks it from behind. Teddy pees on it, and the panda accepts defeat, but Mukon grabs it and runs away, thanking them for their help. Lu mentions that they'll need to try their luck at the fair once again, while Mukon carries the panda to the Yi's sect. He introduces himself to the guards, and tells them he's there to see Master Yan, who leads the Leisure Society. Yan is happy that Mukon managed to catch a Lord-level pet, and he thinks Mukon should join their sect, but he tells them to stop wasting his time and release his pet. So they bring out his ice fox, but instead of freeing it, they end up capturing his fire fox instead. Yan tells him they can't let him recall his pets, so they must finish him, and Yan's men suddenly attack him. One of them holds him from behind, but Mukon steps on his toes and knocks him out. He gets overwhelmed, and he asks Firefox for help, so he stops them with her flames, and he manages to defeat them. He tells his opponents to bring it on, but Yan snaps his fingers, and his pet called Shadow suddenly appears behind Mukon and slams his head to the ground. At the fair, Guling and the others find Lu's wanted poster, but she tells them that it doesn't look like him, and they should just keep an eye on him. After that, Guling tries to withdraw the funds of their sect, but the accountant tells her they don't have anything left. She wonders who took it, and Lu feels guilty since he did it, so he offers to help them, telling them he has some savings. Guling finds a cute pet, and Tong helps her lower the price using her negotiation skills, which impresses everyone. Cheng also gets a red thorn pony, which makes everyone happy, but as they're walking in the market, a man stops them and tries to sell them the rhino horn panda. They become angry seeing it, since they were the ones who caught it, and Guling tells him it belongs to them. But he realizes that she's a part of the Langshao Pavilion, so he reminds them how his group showed them mercy, since they didn't wipe them out last time. She becomes upset hearing this, but he reminds her that they can't use their pets in public, or else they'll be punished by the League. Cheng tells them the panda escaped, but he actually gave it a cloth to cover himself, to trick the man into opening the cage. The panda takes him out, and Tong asks it to become her spiritual pet, because she's too weak on her own to protect her sect. It accepts her as its new master, so she follows what Guling taught her, and successfully establishes a bond with it. Lu notices that the two foxes are also for sale, and he thinks Mukon would never sell his own pets, so he frees them. They show him that Mukon was caught, and they need help to save him, but Cheng wonders if they can fight the Yi sect. Guling notes that the Leisure Society has already made trouble with them, and their leader is at least as strong as a spiritual general. But she believes that if Fawn were there, he would definitely help them. Lu tells them he has something to show them, and he takes them back to the sect, where he gives them a letter from Fawn, which mentions that he left something for them. They reach a tree, where they find a box, and another letter which mentions that if they're reading it, it means he must already be dead. He tells them he couldn't pay proper attention to them, and he's sorry for that, but he tells them to be hopeful, because their sect will return to glory. He tells them he left things that will help them get stronger, but Guling gets emotional reading his letter, so Cheng and Tong comfort her. Yan tortures Mukon to dissolve his bond with his pets, but he knows that even if he follows their order, they'll still kill him. Lu and the others suddenly attack the Yi's sect, taking out the guards in their way, and the noise makes Mukon wonder what's happening outside. Lu and his friends appear, telling him it's been a few days since they last saw each other, and they free Mukon, while his pets rush to meet him. Lu tells everyone to free the other pets while he distracts the headmaster, but Mukon wonders why they saved him, so Lu mentions that they need his help since he's strong. A disciple of the Yi's sect tells Yan that they've been attacked, which impresses him since they have guts. Lu looks for Yan, and he finds a treasure house where there are several precious artifacts, including upgrading materials. His pets pick it up, so he promises to upgrade them after he defeats Yan, but he tells Lu it isn't necessary, because they can share it if he joins their sect. Lu rejects his offer, and notes that he came to get revenge for the Lingxiao Pavilion, but Yan mentions that Fawn was set up by a traitor, so he wonders who he's after. Yan's shadow pet, which is at the 7th phase of the soul building stage, attacks Lu from behind, but his cactus pulls him back to save him. The shadow chases Lu, but he throws the precious items at it, and it surprisingly stops chasing him. He looks back, and sees that Yan and his shadow spirit are carefully putting the items back on the shelves, so he tells his pets to start destroying everything, which makes Yan lose it. Lu thinks it will keep them busy for a while, but the shadow suddenly attacks him, and he starts bleeding, so he realizes that he needs help. The rest of the team hears a blast, and Gu Ling worries about Lu, but he appears behind her, and tells them he needs their help to buy enough time for him to recover. Meanwhile, Yan attacks Mukon, but his foxes defend him, and he taunts Yan to come and get them. His firefox attacks the shadow, but it disappears and shows up behind him, but his ice fox protects him. Lu tells Tong to use the light style skills of her pet, but as the panda faces off against the shadow, it disappears and goes to the other side. Lu realizes he's recovered, but the cactus is still upgrading, so Cheng sends his pet to attack the shadow together with the foxes. The foxes hold the shadow, while Cheng tries a firewheel attack, but Yan upgrades his shadow to the next phase. He orders it to finish them off, and it easily takes out their pets, and he orders it to go after the masters next, so the shadow moves through the ground, and captures Gu Ling. Yan praises them for putting up a good fight, and he thinks it's a shame that it's the end of the Lingxiao Pavilion. But as he orders the shadow to finish her, Lu summons Nyan and manages to free her, but she can't believe he has a catfish. Lu controls Nyan to send the shadow back, and Yan orders it to attack from a distance, so it launches dark crystals, which Nyan tries to dodge, but she ends up getting hit. It slams her to the ground, and starts torturing her, so Lu tells her to get rid of it using the bubble technique that she learned. She manages to escape, and pushes the shadow back to its master, while Lu uses the cactus to control the shadow and hit Yan. He covers it with vines to immobilize it, and Yan is angry that Lu used his materials to upgrade the cactus. Lu sends Nyan to devour the shadow, but as she bites its head, Yan orders it to break free, so it slams the cactus to the ground, and digs its fingers into Nyan. But she refuses to give up, and speeds up the devouring, as Lu tells her to make sure it can't touch the ground, so she uses her full force, and manages to devour it. Yan is shocked seeing this, but he notices that the shadow's core is still intact, and Mukon sends his firefox to grab it. But Yan uses the last bits of his shadow's power to punch the fox, and it drops the core to the ground. Lu rushes to get it, but the shadow suddenly slams him, and he knows that he only needs to land one hit to destroy it, because it's already heavily damaged. But since they're all in such terrible shape, he wonders if it's all over for them. But the girl that Lu rescued suddenly appears, and she destroys the core. Yan tries to attack her from behind, but she manages to dodge it and kicks him away. Lu recognizes her from before, and he thanks her for saving them, but she becomes flustered and runs away. After the fight, Mukon tells them that since he helped them defeat Yan, they should give him most of the treasure. But Lu uses his dog's power on him, and he completely forgets what he was talking about. Lu tells everyone to select their pets, but a fire-style steel ball captures his attention, so he tries to establish a bond with it. He thinks he has succeeded, but he suddenly sees a strange vision and collapses to the ground. They take him to the sect and wonder why he passed out, but he isn't sure what happened, so they go to prepare food for him. Lu is happy that they can upgrade their pets into the soul building stage with the materials they found, and he summons Nyan, asking her to let him check her space. So she forms a bubble and consumes him, and he notices that as the space grows, its function also becomes stronger. He thinks that before the D-class assessment exam, all their pets can reach a high phase of the soul building stage, and he believes that Gu Ling couldn't have been the traitor. He thinks the traitor has already left their sect, but he knows he can't let his guard down, and he suddenly realizes that Gu Ling might have seen Nyan, so he decides to talk to her. Lu meets Guling, but notices tears in her eyes, and she mentions that she was worshipping her master, telling him about how Lu gave them hope. He tells her how he got the catfish, and she notes that she was surprised to see one after so long. He tries to change the topic by asking her about her life before she joined the sect, but she tells him she has something important to show him and takes out his wanted poster. He becomes nervous and tells her he was set up, but she mentions that she trusts him since she's been watching him for the past few days, so she's sure he isn't a pervert. She notes that his behavior reminds her of her master, so she wonders if he's actually Fawn. Cheng and Tong hear their conversation secretly, and Lu knows he can't reveal his identity before finding the traitor, so he accepts the charges against him. Cheng rushes in and ties him with a rope before dragging Lu to his room, telling him to reflect on his actions. Tong asks Guling if she believes Lu has something to do with their master, but she thinks it's impossible because Fawn would never have any connections with a bad person. She tells Tong to ignore it since they need to focus on the D-class assessment competition. After 10 days, we see the group riding pigs, and Cheng is excited since it's his first time. But his mount goes out of control, and he ends up crashing, while Guling mentions that they have a tight budget, so they need to work with what they have. On their way, Tong is nervous because it's her first day, and Guling tries to comfort her by telling her they're only going to the regional competition venue, so they should take it easy. She explains that a few plains sects will gather in their region, and they'll be taken to the competition island by an examiner, so Cheng wonders if they can defeat them. But they suddenly hear a sound, and they see that it's the girl who saved them against Han. They soon reach the examination square, which is full of competitors, and one of the groups recognizes them as a former Class B sect. So they start mocking them, which annoys Cheng, but Guling tells him to ignore them. Guling meets the examiner named Li, who notices that she's become a master, and she wonders why there are so many participants, so he tells her it's because of their sect. He explains that the groups with no resources who stole from them became qualified to participate in the competition, and he mentions that there are 8 sects that are competing, but not all of them can participate because there are limited slots, so they need to decide who goes forward. The Hongfu Bank's leader named Wang thinks that since the Lingxiao Pavilion has already given them a lot, they should also give up their seat. They make fun of Guling because she's still young and inexperienced, but Lu steps forward and asks her which of them robbed her. She points them out, and he tells them to step forward, but they think he's getting too arrogant, so they should teach him a lesson. Lu reminds Wang how Fawn helped them when their sect was in trouble, but he mentions that the development of a sect is a selfish act, where they must take care of themselves. Lu is relieved to hear it, and he summons Teddy, which surprises them, since it's already at the 8th phase of the soul building stage. Wang notes that a dog isn't enough to defeat them, and he summons his spirit pets, but Cactus shows up behind them and traps them. Teddy pees on Wang, and he asks the others for help, but he realizes that they've all already been defeated. Lu tells them to prepare 3 times the amount of things that they stole, and they all agree to deliver after the competition, while Wang begs him to remove his poison. So Lu tells Teddy to detoxify him, and he returns him to normal. Guling tells Li that they've solved the problem, so he mentions that the Lingxiao Pavilion, Wangyu Gate, and the Baimu study can move to the next stage. But Cheng notices that Mukon is also part of the Baimu study group, and he's impressed that their pets have already reached the higher phase. He thinks they should form an alliance, and the Wangyu Gate also wants to be part of it, but he notes that they're weak, which makes them angry. Lu notices that the leader of the Baimu Studies sect is an old lady, and he can't believe she joined the competition at her age, thinking she must be pretty strong. Li tells everyone that they'll be taken to the island by riding cat fawns, but Tong becomes nervous since it's her first time. They soon reach the island, where they're greeted by Master Lun, who's a big fan of the Lingxiao Pavilion. She feels sorry for what happened, but Guling tells her they'll follow in their master's footsteps, asking her to guide them. Lun tells her she has faith in them, telling them to do their best, while the leader of the Wangyu Gate thinks they should stay away from them. Lun gives them bracelets and tells them to keep them safe, since they're a key device in the competition. Guling wonders what the strange spirit animals are, so Lun explains that they're a new pet breed called consonants, which were made by the League for the competition. We learn that when a candidate wears a bracelet from the pet's head, it can detect their real-time behavior to help the examiner supervise the conditions. She reveals that the rules are to keep their bracelets on, not to fall into the water, and to protect the losers. As everyone leaves for the island, Lun tells Guling that as a fan of their sect, she really hopes they make a good comeback. Meanwhile, Bai arrives with her brother Tanshu, who's supervising the competition. Lun wonders who she is, so her colleague notes that she's the supervisor's sister, but Lun tells him that according to the rumors, Bai had something to do with Fawn's death. Tansha hears them, and he tells her that it's just a rumor against their family, so she freaks out and starts apologizing. He tells her that their sect was also B-grade since last year, and it's understandable that people thought they would compete with the Lingxiao Pavilion. But he considers himself lucky to have had a duel with Fawn, and he admits that despite being the same age, Fawn was much stronger than him. The competition finally begins, and everyone's surprised as the water level drops, but Lu notes that the island is rising. They soon realize that they're on the back of a giant turtle, and the governor tells the examiners to establish connections with the consonances. The participants learn that they have a total of 500 beaming spores at the site, and they will get 1 point if they find and touch a spore with their bracelet. The second phase will begin when 300 spores are collected, and Gu Ling collects one of them, but as her group tries to get another one, it suddenly disappears. So they realize that the other sects are using their spirit pets, and it won't be easy to collect the spores. Lu tells them that they need at least 20 spores to get the top spot, and he suggests splitting up, telling them they need to collect at least 5 spores each. Bai notes that the participants are quickly collecting the spores, and she notices that the Tianyun sect has already gathered 18 of them. But the governor tells her that the red spot means that they've taken off their bracelets and put them on their pets to manipulate the rules. They suddenly realize that their pets have gone missing, and a man named Xing Liao from the Beacon Society of the Yi sect arrives with their pets, telling them to stop playing dirty. He threatens them with his pet and tells them they can't yield without their bracelets, but the examiners note that they've been eliminated since they took the bracelets off for more than 3 minutes. Bai wonders if they really failed to put on their bracelets, and her brother tells her they may have been attacked, so the governor sends examiners to check it out. Meanwhile, Lu hears the announcement that the Tianyun sect has been eliminated, and he worries for his team's safety, but he hides as another group suddenly arrives. He sees that it's Lu's friend Zhu, and he wonders what he should do, but Teddy suddenly rushes to their side, so they realize he's hiding nearby. Gu Ling sees a spore, and she collects it, but there are 2 men who suddenly show up, telling her to put it down. They ask her to introduce herself, but Duan suddenly arrives, telling them she's Gu Ling from the Lingxiao Pavilion. She wonders if he's joined another sect, but he doesn't reply, while the other 2 men tell him to get lost, or else they won't spare him. He thinks she must have become the master of the Lingxiao Pavilion, which irritates the man, because he's completely ignoring them. One of them orders their pet to attack him, but Jaime suddenly appears and destroys it. Gu Ling is happy to see her alive, but as she rushes to meet her, she's frightened to see that Jaime has become a monster. The men use totem enhancement on their animals and send them to attack Duan, but he uses Jaime to easily take them out. He finishes them so brutally that blood begins to rain, and the men yield as he sends Jaime to attack them, so he ends up sparing them. Gu Ling sees Jaime feeding on the fallen pets, and she wonders what happened to her, so Duan tells her she survived and grew stronger because he joined the Rakshas sect. He thinks she should also join them, but she tells him that the Lingxiao Pavilion has been recovering quickly ever since Lu joined them. He doesn't believe her, so she mentions that their pets have already entered the soul building stage in just 1 month, and she tells him to rejoin their sect. But he gets angry and calls her stupid for thinking they can restore the sect with the help of an outsider, and he thinks that their pets look childish. She tries to stop him, but he notes that they're no longer friends, and as he leaves, he tells her to keep Lu away from him because he won't show him mercy. Meanwhile, Cheng finds his 4th spore, but he wonders why his spirit pet hasn't changed at all, even after entering the soul building stage. We learn that no matter how powerful he becomes, it will always lower his charisma, so he wants to replace it. He goes to grab the spore, but a boy named Nidian stops him, telling him to hand it over. But Cheng makes fun of him because he's short, so he becomes upset and introduces himself as the master of the sword-shaking super invincible temple. Cheng doesn't take him seriously, and he collects the spore with his bracelet, which enrages Nidian, but Cheng thinks he isn't a threat. But Nidian summons his spirit pet, which draws everyone's attention, including the examiners, because it's an emperor-grade spiritual pet. They tell the governor that the dragon belongs to Nidian, and they think a child couldn't have an emperor-level pet, but Tanshu tells them it's possible through the spiritual pet accompany technique, where a pet embryo is placed directly into a child's spiritual pet pool. But Bai wonders why their father didn't give one to her. So he tells her that one must be talented enough for it to work, which embarrasses her. But he tells her it's a complex process, and he's surprised that such a strong person is from a plain sect, thinking Nidian must have experienced something extraordinary. Meanwhile, Cheng realizes that Nidian has also gone through the spiritual pet accompany, and it reminds him of his past, where everyone had high expectations of him, but all the embryos kept dying. He remembers their harsh comments and how they wanted him to give up because they considered him a failure, and even his own father abandoned him. Chang becomes emotional remembering his past, and Nidian thinks he's stunned to see his true power. But he notes that the spiritual pet company isn't a big deal, so Nidian thinks he's being arrogant and attacks him. Bai thinks the Emperor-level pet will crush everyone, but her brother tells her it's not the case, because there's a flaw in the spiritual pet company technique. He explains that the development of the pet is closely bonded to the cultivation of its master, so if the trainer doesn't cultivate hard, the pet's power will be limited. Chang wonders where the dragon went, but he sees that it's on the ground, and Nidian mocks it for missing a target at such a close range. They start arguing with each other over whose fault it was, so Chang uses the opportunity to attack them, and he throws a stone into the air, telling Thorn to shoot it. It shatters the stone, converting it into spikes, so the dragon destroys them with its fire, but it also hits the turtle, which causes it to start moving. Chang and his pet attack Nidian, but he tells his dragon to lend him 5% of its strength, and he easily pushes them back. Chang refuses to give up even though there's such a power difference, but Nidian easily blocks all of their attacks, so Chang decides to attack with Thorn, but he punches them away. Nidian becomes bored, and he continues to hit them, but Chang keeps getting back up, thinking his power must have a limit. He sees that Nidian is losing his power, so Thorn attacks him once again, but he tells the dragon to lend him more strength, and he easily crushes Thorn. He's about to hit Chang, but his father suddenly arrives and tells him to stop, so he becomes annoyed. But his father tells him that if he hadn't stopped him, he might have killed Chang, but he notes that he wouldn't go that far, since he was just trying to scare him. His father notes that he has already gone too far by summoning the dragon, since it must have drawn everyone's attention, and he tells Chang to yield if he wants to live. But he chooses death over giving up, which shocks him, and Nidian notes that his father looks too simple and honest to pretend to be a bad person, so nobody takes his threats seriously. He wonders how many points Nidian has collected, so he notes that he managed to get one, and Chang thinks he's about to be punished, just like his father punished him in the past. But his father tells him he's proud of him, which makes Chang jealous. But he's happy to see that Thorn is alive, and he calls out to Nidian, telling him he will defeat him one day. Meanwhile, Tom's panda finds a spore and gives it to her, as she notes that it's doing a good job, so she tries to talk to it, but it keeps ignoring her. They see beams of light disappear, so they realize that there are competitors nearby, but the panda doesn't seem to care. It encounters a group of girls, and Tom thinks she doesn't stand a chance because she's outnumbered. But it challenges them to a fight, and they realize that it wants their spores, but Tom wonders why they haven't collected them with their bracelets. The panda attacks them, so they realize that they have no choice but to fight, and they think they can defeat it with their ultimate move. So they summon their cute pets, which attack the panda together, but it easily takes them out, and the girls start crying. Tom tells them to surrender their spores, but they explain that they can't, because they need the spores to save their friend Yan Mei. They reveal that they're a new group from the Qingyu house, and their master told them to join the contest for exposure, but they weren't expecting the other competitors to attack them. They explain that they can't fight, because their pets only know how to act cute, and Yan Mei was taken hostage, so they need to collect spores to save her. They mention that she'll die if they fail, and Tong decides to help them, telling them to take her to the man who took their friend. The girls return to the man, who asks them if they were able to collect the spores, but they tell him they were only able to collect 3, so he threatens to kill Yan Mei. But they mention that they know the secret to winning the contest, and they pretend to pull it out, as he looks forward to seeing it. But the panda suddenly appears behind him, and it pulls his pet away, so he orders it to attack, but the panda destroys it with a single hit. The girls think Yan Mei is safe now, but the man suddenly starts laughing, and we see that he planted a spine-breaking worm in her neck. He tells everyone not to make a move, threatening to break her neck if they don't cooperate, so Tong orders the panda to stand down. He mentions that he'll plant a spine-breaking worm on everyone's necks, so that they will become his slaves, but Tong suddenly starts to lose it. She remembers a traumatic event where she was forced to make a difficult choice, and she suddenly starts screaming as the man prepares to plant his worm on her. But she suddenly grabs onto him and smashes him into the ground, which knocks him out. The panda removes the worm on Yan Mei's neck, and the girls are glad that she's safe, but they realize that Tong has gone berserk. She tells them to stay away, but she suddenly collapses, so they wonder if she's okay. She later wakes up, but she mentions that her head hurts, and she has no idea what just happened. So the girls tell her she defeated the bad guy, but she becomes surprised hearing this, and she wonders why she can't remember anything about her past. She notes that she needs to continue with the contest, but they give her their spores to thank her for saving them, telling her they'll quit the competition and join the Lingxiao Pavilion. Meanwhile, an examiner notes that the contest has lasted for 4 hours, and the Beacon Society of the Yi's sect is in first place, while the Lingxiao Pavilion is in 7th place. She adds that she looked into the place where the Tianyun sect disappeared, but she realized that everyone had been killed. So the governor thinks he needs to investigate it, because someone is using the rules to kill. We see Lu with a girl named Jan, and he wonders why she's following him, telling her to go back to her group. So she explains that she just wanted to see Teddy, because she hasn't seen him in a long time, and Lu asks her what kind of a man she thinks he is. But she suddenly gets close to him, calling him a nasty devil, and he explains that he doesn't remember anything about his past. She thinks his weird disease has returned, and he asks her to tell him about it, wondering what he did while he was sick. But she blushes hearing this, and punches him away, telling him he should never have touched her. The fire fox suddenly appears, and Mukon wonders why it didn't attack him, but his master asks him if Lu is their enemy. Mukon explains that he's their friend, and tells Lu to help him collect spores, but they suddenly see a man with an ominous aura. Mukon's master asks him who he is, so he introduces himself as Xing, revealing that he's a master from the Beacon Society of the Yi sect. Mukon tells him there's no reason to fight, because there are no spores in the area, and Xing realizes he has a point, so he prepares to leave. But there's suddenly an announcement, which mentions that the rules have changed, because the second stage has begun. The announcer notes that the competitors can now steal points by touching an opponent's bracelet, so Xing decides to fight, and everyone freaks out, as they realize he merged his body with his pet. He lunges towards them, and Lu prepares to take him on, but Mukon drags him away, telling him they're no match for Xing. The members of the Baimu study wonder why Mukon ran away, and Xing tells them to bring out their pets, because he wants to see what they're made of. But they immediately surrender, and he attacks their master, who begs him to spare them, because they aren't really trainers. Mukon reveals that his teammates were just bystanders, and he hired them so that he could join the competition. But he realizes that he just put them in danger, and he explains that he wasn't expecting the rules to change, hoping they were able to yield in time. Bai asks the governor if he's encouraging the competitors to kill each other, but he reminds her that the goal of the contest is to determine the strongest sect, and explains that the rule wasn't made to let them fight. Tangsha notes that it's hard to steal a trainer's points, because their score will reach 0 as soon as they yield, so he knows that the rule was made to make the weak surrender. We return to Xing, as he realizes that Mukon's teammates have a score of 0, because they surrendered before he could reach them. They explain their situation to him, and their master begs him to spare them, but he takes her out, so the others fear for their lives. He mentions that they're useless, so they don't deserve to exist in this world. The announcer mentions that there are 15 teams remaining, and Lu asks Mukon if he wants to quit, because he's the only one left in his team, but he's determined to survive until the end. Lu meets Cheng and Tong, and tells them he already has 5 points, but Cheng wonders why he's with Mukon, so he reminds Cheng that they're allies. Tong asks Lu about Jan, so she mentions she's Lu's girlfriend, and they're all shocked hearing this. He tries to explain the situation, but everyone starts mocking him, asking him if they're getting married. The announcer reveals there are 15 teams left, and the Beacon Society of the Yi's sect is in the top spot, while the Raksha's sect is in 2nd place. Guling reveals that she saw Duan, and she notes that Jaime is still alive, but it now looks like a zombie, because he joined a strange sect. Lu recalls that Nyan also looked like a zombie when it went out of control, so he wants to meet Duan, but he knows that he needs to focus on winning the contest first. He notes that there are fewer than 200 spores left, and it's too risky to split up, so Mukon suggests stealing the points of the other competitors. But Cheng doesn't trust him, because he thinks Mukon will betray them, and he notes that he doesn't want to kill other people. But Lu thinks they can steal points without hurting anyone, and he comes up with an idea. We see 2 trainers as they see spores, so one of them summons his wolf to collect them, but they realize that the spores are fake. Lu and his friends appear behind them, and Cheng's pet attacks the wolf, so it tries to retreat, but Teddy uses his pea to knock it out. The trainers try to yield, but the cactus restrains them, and Teddy knocks them out with its pea. Lu realizes that the trainers' bracelets have 9 points, and Cheng notes that they can use them to reach the top 3. But a group of men suddenly appear, and we see that they've taken Jan hostage, threatening to kill her if Lu doesn't give them the bracelets. She tells them they got the wrong person, because she isn't even from the Lingxiao Pavilion, so she thinks they won't help her, but Lu agrees to give the men the bracelets if they let her go. She blushes hearing this, realizing he still cares about her, and he gives them the bracelets, so one of them collects the points. But their leader notes that they need to reach a safe distance before they let her go, so Lu and his friends become angry, but Jan tells them not to worry, and he realizes that she has a plan. So he gives the leader 5 minutes, telling him to release her after he gets away, threatening to destroy his sect if she doesn't return safely. He walks away with her and tells his men to watch Lu and his friends, but after a few minutes, he suddenly hears an announcement that her sect has been eliminated. So he becomes angry, but the men wonder what happened, and he prepares to take them out, but the announcer notes that the men have also been eliminated. So everyone becomes confused, and Lu runs to look for Jan, but she suddenly appears behind him, realizing he was worried about her. He wonders what happened, so she reveals that she used her pet Foxy to charm the leader and put him under her control. She knew that his sect would get disqualified if he attacked her, because she already lost the contest, so she orders him to hit her, which explains how his team was eliminated. Lu realizes that he had no reason to worry, but she decides to reward him for caring about her, and gives him the leader's bracelet. Bai realizes that an entire team was eliminated in an instant, and she wonders if they were killed, but the governor shows her a symbol, telling her they were disqualified for attacking a loser. The examiners pick up the losers, and we learn that their points are still in their bracelets because they didn't surrender before they got eliminated. Gu Ling thanks Jan for helping them, and they invite her to visit their sect. She starts flirting with Lu, asking him if he wants to kiss her before she leaves, but he tells her he isn't interested. She flies away with the examiners, as she notes that he has changed as a person, but it only makes her like him more. Lu and his friends decide to distribute the points, and we learn that the 3 bracelets have a total of 26 points, so Cheng thinks they'll reach the top spot. But Mukon asks for his share, telling Lu to give him the 5 points in his bracelet, and he's glad that he now has 9 points. Bai realizes that the Lingxiao Pavilion now has 41 points, and she wonders if they're now in the top 3, so the examiner reveals that they're now in 2nd place. Tongshu becomes happy hearing this, and he thinks they're amazing because they eliminated their opponents without killing them. Bai notes that someone in the pavilion has 17 points, and Tongshu thinks it's their new member, who's said to be an imposing young man with immense power. She becomes interested in him, and she wants to meet him, so she tells her brother they should visit the pavilion after the contest. After that, the announcer notes that there are 10 teams left, and the Beacon Society of the Yi's sect is still at the top spot with 54 points, while the Lingxiao Pavilion is in 2nd place with 45. The Rakshas sect has fallen to 3rd place with 43 points, and Duan doesn't want to lose to the Lingxiao Pavilion, so he decides to make his move. Lu and his friends are happy that they're in 2nd place, and they're determined to win the contest, but the announcer notes that the yield rule has been removed, and the final phase has begun. Bai realizes that the giant tortoise is sinking, and the governor notes that the competitors aren't allowed to fall into the water, so they'll be forced to climb to the peak. Lu and his friends rush to the top, and they know that it's dangerous, since they can no longer yield, but they prepare to take on anyone in their path. Duan suddenly appears with his team, and one of them summons his pet, which uses its tentacle to grab onto Lu. He knows that he'll get eliminated once his bracelet touches the water, so he throws it to Mukon, telling him he'll be back after 3 minutes. He gets pulled into the water, and he sees a giant octopus, but he thinks that if Nyan devours it, she'll be able to reach the final phase of the soul building stage. Duan notes that the Lingxiao Pavilion is hopeless, and tells them to hand over their bracelets if they don't want to die, but Cheng tells him to release Lu first. He becomes upset hearing this, and threatens them with Jaime's powers, asking them why they're willing to confront him just to save Lu. He tells them to give up on the Lingxiao Pavilion, but Gu Ling reminds him that he left their sect, so she's determined to take him down. Jaime charges in, and it clashes with Cheng and Gu Ling's pets, but Tong believes she can't keep up with them, so she considers running away. But a trainer appears behind her, and attacks her with his brown panda, which is on the 5th phase of the soul building stage. Meanwhile, Mukon thinks about stealing Lu's points, but as he starts running away, a dinosaur suddenly blocks his path. We learn that the master of Wangyu Gate is its trainer, and he threatens to take Mukon down, but he notes that they should run away, because the members of the Rakshas sect are approaching. But the master is confident that he can take them on, because his pet is the only ancient beast in the world. But a T-Rex suddenly eats it, so he freaks out, and clings to Mukon as he runs away. We return to Lu, as he manages to break free, and he summons Nyan, who's already on the 9th phase of the soul building stage. The octopus tries to catch it, but Nyan dodges its tentacles, and creates a massive whirlpool, which pulls the octopus towards it. It tries to swim away, but Nyan devours it, and Lu returns to the surface, where he thanks its trainer for feeding Nyan, and the cactus sends him flying. Lu rushes to Mukon, and asks him to return his bracelet. He's glad to see Lu, and tells him he's been protecting it with his life, but he can't hear Mukon because of the wind. The T-Rex appears, and he returns Lu's bracelet, but he runs away with it, and Mukon can't believe he just left him to die. Lu approaches Tong, who notes that her pet is struggling against the brown panda because it doesn't want to listen to her. But he tells her not to worry and uses his cactus to restrain its opponent before ordering the panda to paint Nyan. Jaime defeats Cheng and Guling's pets, but Lu suddenly appears, and he summons Nyan, but his friends wonder why it looks different, so he explains that it has turned into a bird. Duan reveals that he dislikes Lu because he's trying to imitate Fawn, but he notes that Duan was the one who betrayed Fawn. He prepares to take him on, and tells Cheng to help Mukon, who's still running away from the T-Rex. Cheng appears before him, and he orders his pet to attack a tree, but the T-Rex protects it, and its trainer comes out of hiding. He's impressed that Cheng was able to find out where he was hiding, but the T-Rex continues to attack, so the master of Wangyu Gate gives Cheng his bracelet and runs away. Cheng wonders how he can defeat the T-Rex, because his pet's attack didn't work, and Mukon reveals that he tried using his foxes, but they couldn't damage the T-Rex. Cheng suggests using a combination attack, and Mukon orders his foxes to create an elemental vortex, which allows Cheng's pet to launch ice and fire spikes. The T-Rex starts burning, so they realize that fire is its weakness, and they can defeat it by piercing its skin with flame spikes. But its trainer reveals that it has a special technique, and it unleashes a terrifying roar, which stuns the other pets. It prepares to finish them off, but Nidian suddenly knocks it out, and he can't believe his dragon was affected by the roar, because it's an emperor-grade pet. Cheng thinks he went there to save them, but he explains that he was just passing by when he saw a bracelet on the ground. He picks up the Wangyu Gate Master's bracelet, but they end up fighting over it. We return to the panda, as it continues to struggle against its opponent, and the enemy trainer notes that it's no match for his pet, so he tells Tong to hand over her bracelet. She tells the panda to stop, but it refuses to listen to her, and she recalls that Lu told her to believe in herself, because she needs to display her strength if she wants her pet to obey her. She recalls that she was just a cook in the sect, and she never imagined she would have her own pet, but she enjoyed watching her friends train to get stronger. She was satisfied with her life as a cook, but she recalls that Fawn believed in her, so she thinks she needs to get stronger. She tries to talk to the panda again, but it ignores her, so she spins it around and tells it to listen to her. It recalls how she defeated the trainer, so it's afraid of what she can do, and she notes that they can win if it sticks to her plan. It starts following her orders, and the brown panda tries to attack it, but it unleashes a flash of light, which blinds the enemy trainer. It thinks his pet is winning, but it suddenly punches him away, and he realizes that the panda used an illusion. We learn that Tong planned to blind him, so that they could change the color of the two pandas, and defeat him while he's confused. She celebrates her victory, but she wonders how Lu is doing, and we see that he's about to fight Duan. In a flashback, we see Duan as he approaches Fawn, and he notes that Jaime has reached the mature stage. He mentions that it's as powerful as a lord, and he asks Fawn to help him explore its potential, so he agrees to spar with him. We return to the present, as Lu surrounds himself with water, which makes Duan remember Fawn, and Gu Ling flies away, telling Lu to give Duan a chance to explain himself. Jaime rushes forward, but Lu traps it in a bubble, and Duan wonders why he can use that skill, because Fawn used it to stop Jaime during their sparring match. It starts attacking with incredible speed, but Lu uses his barrier to block its attacks, as he notes that Duan never learns, because he used that move during their first fight. Lu uses water balls to attack Jaime, who uses its claws to destroy one of them, but it suddenly gets trapped in a water vortex. Duan wonders why Lu can also use that skill, because Fawn used it to trap Jaime during their duel, but it used its instincts to cut through the current and break free. So Duan orders it to use that move again, but Lu sends it crashing into a rock, and Duan is shocked, wondering why it didn't move like it did during the sparring match. Lu explains that the Rakshas sect controls dead pets, but Duan is angry because he refuses to accept that Jaime is already dead. It charges in, while Lu orders Nyan to rush forward, but Jaime dashes past it and attacks Lu directly. But Duan realizes that he has disappeared, and Lu appears above him, smashing him to the ground. He later regains consciousness, and Lu asks him if he betrayed Fawn, but he's angry hearing this, thinking Lu is trying to slander him. Gu Ling knows how much he respects Fawn, but Lu is convinced that the Rakshas sect was involved in Fawn's death, since his pet turned into a zombie. Duan explains that he could never betray Fawn, because he was loyal to his master, and he reveals that after he left the pavilion, he desperately looked for a way to revive Jaime. But everyone thought he was crazy, and even the doctors told him it's impossible to save Jaime. But he heard about the Rakshas sect, which had a rare skill to bring dead pets back to life, so he decided to visit their sect master. He agreed to help Duan, under the condition that he join the sect, so he accepted the deal, but he never saw how they revived Jaime. He thinks it has something to do with a magic pill, and Gu Ling wonders if they used it to turn Fawn's pet into a zombie, but Duan explains that he doesn't know. He also thinks the Rakshas sect is suspicious, but notes that he decided to join them because he was blinded by Jaime's death. Lu lets him go because he believes everything he said, and he notes that they should investigate the Rakshas sect after the contest is over. But a trainer named Mitzi suddenly appears, and she attacks them with her bombs, so Gu Ling tells Duan to stay there while she supports Lu. Duan thinks they no longer need him in their sect, but as he watches Gu Ling leave, he imagines himself being welcomed back into the Lingxiao pavilion. Fawn tells him everyone's waiting for him, and he's about to join them, but Jaime stops him, and he apologizes for turning it into a monster. Mitzi flies away, and Nyan tries to eat her, but she manages to stab its mouth and slams it to the ground. Gu Ling flies towards her as Mitzi tries to stop her, but she manages to dodge the attacks and uses her pet to cover Mitzi with slime. She struggles to use her wings, and she's about to crash to the ground, but she grabs onto Gu Ling and falls with her. She realizes that her other pet has been knocked out, so she recalls it, but Mitzi surrounds her with flames and tells her to burn before flying away. Gu Ling struggles to breathe because of the fire, and she's about to pass out, but Jaime suddenly cuts through the flames, and Duan catches her before she hits the ground. He walks away with her, but she notes that Jaime is still in the fire, and she wants him to save it, but he tells her it isn't necessary. He knows that Lu is right, because Jaime is already dead, but he can't let go of it since he has become too attached to it. He recalls the moments he spent with it, and he starts crying, but he knows that he needs to let it rest, so he continues to walk away, and the fire consumes it. We see the master of the Wanyu Gate as he waits for the examiners to pick him up, and he hears an announcement that there are only 6 teams left. But he realizes that someone's approaching, so he runs away, and Xing sends him flying. Mukon remembers him as the person who killed his teammates, and another master from the Yi's sect named Armteeth mentions that it's time for dinner. Their leader Kawai mentions that Mitzi is still having fun, and we see her throwing her bombs to attack Lu, who uses his cactus to defend himself. The foxes attack Xing, but he easily overpowers them, and the panda rushes towards Armteeth, who stabs it with his arm. Tong rushes to its side, but he realizes that she's wide open and manages to land a solid hit. We see Nidian's father watching Xing fight, and he thinks they should get out of there because Xing is too powerful for them. But Nidian mentions that he wants to fight him, so his father scolds him, reminding him that he's already out of energy. In a flashback to 3 months earlier, we see Nidian's father telling him that they'll enter the contest, and he wants him to be their sect master. But his father tells him his dragon must reach the mature stage, because they'll fight against powerful competitors, so he trains his body to store his dragon's energy. A week before the contest, his father checks on him, and Nidian thinks he's already an absolute unit, but his father realizes that he can barely store 2 points, so he pushes him to train harder. We return to the present, as Nidian notes that his dragon is an emperor, so he thinks it should be able to defeat Xing. But his father explains that it's still at the mature stage, while Xing's centipede has already reached the highest phase of the soul building stage. Nidian mentions that he'll use the forbidden skill, and his father tells him not to act recklessly, because they've almost won the contest. But he explains that he wants to help Cheng, because he considers him as his friend, so his father tells him to go for it. Xing prepares to kill Cheng, but the dragon suddenly appears behind him, and Nidian tells Cheng he can't die yet, because he still needs to defeat him. The dragon grabs onto Xing, who stabs it with his spikes, so it crashes to the ground, but Nidian knows that it's still alive. He notes that he can store 25 points because of his training, but he already spent all of it earlier, and he doesn't want to look bad, so he decides to use his forbidden skill. He tells the dragon to lend him 10 points, and its energy flows into his body, while his father can't believe that he actually used his power loan skill. He charges in, and manages to land a devastating blow, which knocks Xing down. But he gets back up, and starts attacking relentlessly, as Nidian struggles to defend himself, because he's running out of energy. Xing prepares to finish him off, but he tells the dragon to lend him 10 points again, and he punches Xing away. So he becomes angry, and traps Nidian with his spikes, as Cheng tries to save him, but Xing easily defeats his pet. Nidian tells the dragon to give him 30 points, and his body starts overflowing with energy, but his father knows that he needs to pay high interest on that loan. He crushes Xing's spikes, as he easily overpowers him, and he uses his sky-destroying punch to finish him off. Meanwhile, Armteeth finds the panda hiding behind a rock, and he attacks it with his arm. He can't believe it's still alive, and he prepares to finish it off, but Tong orders it not to die as she activates her resonance skill. Arm Teeth recognizes it as a lord's skill, while the panda grabs onto his arm and defeats him with a devastating blow. We return to Nidian as he takes Xing's bracelet, and Cheng thanks him for coming to his rescue. But Nidian suddenly starts crying because he borrowed 50 points from the dragon, so he needs to train extremely hard to pay his debt. Lu dodges Mitzi's attacks and restrains her with his cactus before transforming his steel ball into a sword. He uses it to cut her down, and he asks Gu Ling what happened, so she notes that Duan has finally come around. But he suddenly drops her and gives Lu his bracelet, telling him he'll no longer work in the Rakshas sect. So Gu Ling wonders if he'll return to the Lingxiao Pavilion, but he explains that he needs to stay in the Rakshas sect because he still needs to investigate Fawn's death. Kawai realizes that his teammates have been defeated, so he uses his skill to steal their pets and notes that it's time to put an end to the contest. He fires a laser beam at the turtle, causing it to sink, and everyone realizes that the water level is rising. So the governor orders the examiners to save the drowning candidates, and we see that Nidian can't swim, but Cheng saves him, telling him they're about to be eliminated since they're in the water. So he orders his dragon to take him to the sky, but his father reveals that it's also struggling in the water, and the examiners save the candidates. Loon tells Kawai he went too far, but he explains that he didn't break the rules, and an announcement mentions that several teams have been eliminated, so he thinks he has won the contest. But the announcer mentions that it isn't over yet, because Lu is still in the game. Bai is glad that the Lingxiao Pavilion hasn't been eliminated yet, but she wonders why they're still fighting, because she thinks they don't stand a chance against Kawai. So Tangshu explains that the people respect them because they never quit, even though the odds are always against them. Lu uses an ascending material to take Nian to the next stage, and he approaches Kawai, who looks forward to seeing what he can do. He summons Nian, and Kawai launches his bombs, but Lu traps them in a bubble, which he feeds to Nian. It fires the bombs at Kawai, but he manages to dodge them and pushes Lu back with an energy blast. He fires countless projectiles, which set the forest on fire, but Lu uses Nian to knock him down. But he immediately recovers and fires a powerful energy beam, which sends Lu flying. But he activates his Lord's Resonance skill, and Nian eats him as their movements become perfectly synchronized. Kawai fires his laser beams, but Lu dodges all of them, and Nian takes to the sky as it starts absorbing Kawai. He fires projectiles as he tries to stop it, but it spins around as it deflects all of them, and it lands a devastating blow, which sends Kawai crashing to the water with tremendous force. He wonders how Nian became so agile, and he continues to fight on, as he asks Lu what kind of trick he used. So he explains that his vision and feelings are connected to Nian, and they can see Kawai's movements in slow motion. He attacks them with everything he has, and Nian tries to dodge them, but ends up getting hit. Kawai follows up with a massive fireball, but it launches Lu towards Kawai, and he transforms his steel ball into a gauntlet, which he uses to deliver the finishing blow. Kawai crashes to the ground, and Bai is happy that the Lingxiao Pavilion won the contest, telling Tangshu he wants to meet the man who led them to victory. Lu waits for the examiners to pick him up, as he thinks about the future of the Lingxiao Pavilion, thinking they will finally have the resources to grow stronger after they join the league. But Kawai's pets suddenly eat him, and they transform into a monster, which fires an energy beam. Nian tries to dodge it, but it hits his fin, so Lu recalls it, and the monster suddenly approaches him. He wonders how he can defeat it, and it touches his eye, but his body is suddenly surrounded by a strange power, and a voice tells the monster to stop bothering him. A fist punches the monster away, and Lu wonders what's happening, but he notes that he doesn't care, as long as the strange power defeats the monster. It charges towards him, but the fist suddenly disappears, and he wonders why the power isn't doing anything to help him. He thinks he's doomed, but a snake suddenly attacks the monster, and we see that it belongs to Tangshu. Bai also appears, and he tells her to take care of Lu while he deals with the monster, so she thinks it's her chance to talk to the hero of the Lingxiao Pavilion. But she realizes that he's acting strange, and the voice wonders why he's still alive, because it killed him when he refused to accept its terms. It tells him it's hungry, so it wants to eat Bai, and it takes control of his body, but when she sees his face, she wonders why he's the hero of the Lingxiao Pavilion. She summons her snake and orders it to attack him, but he just throws it away, and he pushes her down, so she starts to freak out. Tangshu's snake stabs the monster, and he uses his skill to freeze it as his snake delivers the finishing blow. But he freaks out as he sees Lu with Bai, and he kicks him away, telling him to get away from her. Lu falls into the water, and he thinks about the voice that talked to him, realizing it's responsible for the original Lu's death. Tangshu's snake pulls him out, and Bai mentions that she has a beef with him, so Tangshu realizes that he needs to deal with him. The Lingxiao Pavilion is announced as the winner of the contest, so everyone celebrates, but Gu Ling wonders why Lu isn't with them, and an examiner mentions that Tanshu took him away. We see Lu heading to Bai's mansion, as he mentions that the fates conspire against him, but Bai laughs at him because she thinks justice has been served. Tanshu reveals that he used to play chess with Fawn, and he notes that he despised him because Fawn was from a plain sect. The other big sects also looked down on him, but he maintained his composure and supported the pavilion, even though everyone judged him. Tanshu reveals that it's the reason why he respects Fawn, but he notes that the pavilion has become a D-class sect, and he wonders if Lu can compare to Fawn. He thinks about his friends, who all want the pavilion to return to its former glory, and he realizes that he needs to do his best for them. So he tells Tanshu that they won't yield to fate, and they'll make the pavilion greater than ever before. Tanshu tells him he's similar to Fawn, but he asks Lu about the catfish he stole, and he notes that he already ate it. So Tanshu tells Bai to take him to his chamber, because he wants to punish him for what he did. Meanwhile, Gu Ling writes a letter to Fawn, telling him they're a D-class sect once again, and she notes that times were tough, but she felt like he was there helping them. Lu summons Nyan, and he tells it to believe in him, because he'll do anything it takes to get the pavilion back to the top. But that's where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.